Hello YouTube, this is Kim Stevens and I'm back with Undiluted TV. And tonight's podcast, I want to touch on something that a lot of other people have already talked about, already reported on, and I just want to give my commentary and give my thoughts on the whole Amanda Seales, Myron Rolle situation. Back in February, it appears that Amanda Seales posted a video where she allegedly accused Myron Rolle, who used to be a NFL star. Yeah, he was an NFL player, and he has now become a neurosurgeon. She posted some information, and she basically came out and accused him of sexual harassment, because she did actually call him a predator. She did actually say that it had come to her attention that, you know, he had sexually harassed a couple of women, and she did call it predatory behavior. And all of this came about because of her podcast. She has a podcast that she calls Small Doses. And this all came about because of her podcast. And in this podcast, the name of it, like I said, her podcast is called Small Doses. But the episode that we're referring to was called Side Effects of a Crush. Side Effects of a Crush. And it was posted 9 weeks ago. So it was posted back in January. And that's when she did this podcast, back in January. And it was in February when she came out and she posted a video, and she actually named him. Because in the actual podcast, Side Effects of a Crush, she didn't actually name him. But in her video she later posted, she actually named him. And before I let you hear the clip of the video, let me read to you what she said, because she also went on Breakfast Club and said some things. This is Amanda talking. I, on my podcast and on the Breakfast Club, spoke about an individual who had approached me on the internet, and we spoke on the phone, and they said some troubling things. Okay, this thing tries to keep jumping. Hold on, let me keep up with it. And they said some troubling things in the conversation that made me take a step back. She said in an Instagram video in February, with literally no investigation. Remember that, with literally no investigation, it was brought to my attention he had sexually harassed a woman by opening the door when she came to meet him for a date, butt naked, and then telling her that she was the one overreacting. Seales continued. When I spoke about him on my podcast, this page is jumping around, y'all, so you know, bear with me. When I spoke about him on my podcast and on the Breakfast Club, I didn't say his name. I literally just said a couple of characteristics about him, and it has been shocking and incredibly discomforting to me how many women, 8 as of tonight, that have come forward to say his name, and that he had been incredibly problematic and behaved in a very sexually predatory way with them, that some have said could have gotten him fired. I say all that to say, if you are approached by Myron Rolle, you should just be mindful. I don't have empirical proof, but I've had enough women come forward to say that he was incredibly inappropriate with them, that I feel it would be inappropriate of me to not put the word out there that there's a man that is not being okay with women, quote unquote. That's her quote. Okay. And now remember, she said herself, with literally no investigation. So there has literally been no investigation of any of these allegations or any of these things that she alleges these women said to her. With literally no investigation, it was brought to my attention that he's sexually harassed. Okay, well, with literally no investigation and with literally no proof that anything that this woman or any of these women have said to you about this man, how can you then put it out there that he sexually harassed anybody when you yourself said with literally no proof? Okay, so basically with literally no proof, what you did was you took the word of as she said, as of at the point when she put the video out. At that point in February when she put the video out, she said as of 8 women, she said, yeah, 8 as of tonight, meaning 8 women had come out by that time and said that this man was problematic and you know, that he had behaved in a very sexually predatory way. Okay, but without any proof, without any investigation, without doing any fact checking, without investigating these women's claims, without knowing whether or not these women were actually telling her the truth, she came out and she named this man. And she attached his name to sexual harassment and being very sexually predatory. That's what she latched his name to. And she felt like it would be inappropriate for her not to put the word out there that he was a man that is not being okay with women. But remember now, she herself said with literally no investigation. So she's admitting herself that none of this has been investigated. None of this has been researched. No fact checking has been done. She doesn't have a clue whether or not these women are telling her the truth. She doesn't have a clue whether or not these women actually even know this man. Nothing. She claims that these women just came out of nowhere based on the 1 or 2 characteristics that she described. Because in her podcast, she does not name him. You see what I'm saying? But even if these women were giving her his name, she still has done no investigation. She's not investigated any of these allegations that the women were making against him. She has no proof to substantiate any of the allegations that these women were making. Based on the interaction that she herself, and you will hear this in a minute, based on the interaction that she herself said that she had with him, the little interaction she had with him, there was no sexual harassment. He was not overly aggressive with her. So why was it necessary to put this man on blast with no corroborating evidence, having done no fact checking? Why was it necessary to put this man's name out there when you didn't know whether these women were lying to you or not? You didn't know whether these women's stories checked out or not. It's obvious you weren't there. And you got to remember, all of this is based on a crush that she had on him. Based on a crush that she herself, you will hear, that she herself had on him for about 2 years. And finally, one day, after about 2 years, he popped up in her DMs. So, I mean, that boggles my mind. It boggles my mind how you can admit yourself that there was literally no investigation. So there was literally no time took finding out whether or not any of this was true, finding out whether or not any of these allegations were true, finding out anything about these women. But you felt like it would have been inappropriate for you not to put his name out there when you didn't know whether these women were lying to you or not. Okay, now, like I said, those were her words. That was a direct quote from her in this article. And of course, this article and the link to the podcast and all of that will be in the description box, so you can go listen to it yourself. And you can read the article yourself. But in her words, there was literally no investigation. There was literally no fact checking, no finding out any extra information, no finding out anything about these women. None of that was done. But she put this man's name out there in connection with sexual harassment and in connection with very sexually predatory behavior. Based on nothing. Based on nothing but the words of women that she didn't even know. Women that she knew absolutely nothing about. And you have to understand, her interaction with him was not very long. You know, it was not very extensive. It didn't go very deep. You know, it was an interaction that came about, like I said, after the fact that she had a crush on him for 2 years, and he finally, after 2 years, popped up in her DMs. So, let me let you hear this. Okay. Let's go back.
I asked the guy, did you watch the R. Kelly documentary? He said, quippy back and forth. Still talking about shit I think is interesting. Entered the door to a date, butt ass naked. Sometimes you trying to make somebody a prospect that you should have just kept a crush. Either you didn't do enough research, or, it's not the right scenario, or they're going to just ruin it. It was better when you didn't know that they could not spell maybe. It was better. Admit it. So, this is a real thing. It was better when you didn't know that they have answered the door to a date butt ass naked. I had a crush on somebody on these interwebs for 2 years. 2 years I was waiting for this nigga to land in my DMs. Y'all, 2 years. I followed him 2 years ago with the mindset of, you will manifest. You will manifest. But I never made any move. I would look at the Instagram, be like, he's still cute. Still talking about shit I think is interesting. Still doing things I think is interesting. But I'm not going to make a move. It's just over there. It's a crush. It's in its world. And then, the day after New Year's, who lands in my DMs? Mr. Crush. Hey, I really appreciate your take on things. Very refreshing. So now we have this little, quippy back and forth. And I said, did you see the R. Kelly documentary? Which, by the way, at some point I will talk about. Because I think that actually relates to this conversation about how you have a crush. You can have a dangerous crush. Because, when you are obsessive and fanatical, that's a crush that can become very problematic and turn into stalking and can also put you in danger. But I'll get back to that. I asked the guy, did you watch the R. Kelly documentary? He said, no, but it's my day off. So, should I watch the documentary or should I get your number and get to know you better? Now, Brendan just turned his nose up because Brendan realized off top, this is a prank. I, in my insecurity, was like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. Oh my God. Because I'm still in crush mode, y'all. I'm still in crush mode. I haven't transferred over to prospect mode where you start looking at people's behaviors very differently. I'm still in crush mode where it's just like, oh my God, that's crazy. We get on the phone. During the conversation, there's a lot of laughs, very intellectual, but then there's some red flags that pop up. Like, I told a story about my life, and I was like, tell me a story. He tells me a story, and the story he chose to tell, of all the stories in his whole life of 34 years, the story he chose to tell was about how when he was at boarding school, he had a fire escape outside of his window, and so him and his roommate realized that they could sneak girls up into their room, and that then they realized that they could actually rent their room out to their boys to sneak girls up. And and they would rate the girls. That's how they would determine the cost of the rental fee. And that him and this dude got into it because he was rating the girl at a 50, and the guy was saying, no, she's an 80. And I'm like, what are we talking about right now? Why are you telling me this story? He's like, no, it's my high school days. But the fact that as a grown-ass man, he thought that this was like a story that you like open with, immediately the crush now is dwindling. Because like, huh? So then, as always, I do my due diligence and I do my research. And it came back down the wire that he had met somebody else on Instagram, came out to where they live for a conference. They set up a date. She goes to meet him. And he's like, oh, meet me at the hotel room and then we'll head out. And when she gets to the door, he opens the door butt ass naked. And she's like, what the fuck? And then he tried to turn it on her. And it's like, what? I was just sleeping. Why are you like making a big deal out of this? No more crush. No more prospect. But it would have been cool if he had just stayed a crush, right? But once I learned more, once we entered into prospects phase, because he pushed us into prospect phase when he hollered at me, it let me know you are not crush worthy by any means. He lucky I don't say his name on this damn podcast. Opening doors naked for women, because by the way, that's predatory behavior. Okay? It's predatory behavior, and it's problematic, and it speaks to the, again, reality that there are men who are out here really thinking like, I can do whatever the fuck I want to do, and I'm not going to have any repercussions. You think that motherfucker knew that I was going to find that out? And of course, I ended things by saying, it's a small world. He actually did not respond to me. And then I said, so, you're not following me? And he was like, I was never following you. Wrong answer as well. So like, you landed in my DMs, but you weren't following me? He's like, you're not hard to find on Instagram. You're a prick. And I said, you know what? Let you know one thing. You can be all the Rhodes Scholars, and you can have all the scrubs, but it does not change the fact that if you are opening the door butt ass naked to women who did not encourage that, you are no different than a nigga jacking his dick on the 2 train to Harlem.
That's the clip. That's the clip of the interaction that she had with him. Now, let's make sure, and like I said, I'm going to leave the link to this clip in the description box so you can hear the whole thing, or you can just hear that part of it or whatever. And she's talking about him because she keeps referring to the opening up the door to the motel room butt naked. And then she also says what she says about the Rhodes Scholars and the scrubs. So those are the 2 references that she makes to him. And now understand, like I said, all of this came about because this woman had a crush on this man for 2 years. For 2 years she had a crush on him. And granted, she didn't, like she said, she didn't follow up on it. She didn't make a move, and he didn't make a move either. So lo and behold, after 2 years, he shows up in her DMs. He didn't show up in her DMs being rude. He didn't show up in her DMs being aggressive. He didn't show up in her DMs being forceful. He didn't show up in her DMs being sexual. She said herself, it was very intellectual, there were a lot of laughs. At some point she asked him did he watch the surviving R. Kelly thing, because see, she was trying to take it there, from the very beginning. From the very beginning, she was trying to take it there. You understand what I'm saying? Of all the things she talks about, of all the stories that he could tell out of his 34 years, why would he start with that story? Okay, well, of all the things that she could have said to him with just this introduction, with him just coming into her DMs, why would she try to start the conversation off with something about R. Kelly? And then not long after having this mediocre conversation with this man, all of a sudden she jumps to he's a sexual predator. You know what I'm saying? You start off so R. Kelly, the whole R. Kelly scandal, everything that's going on with R. Kelly is in the back of your mind. It's in your mind. Because this is the first thing that you choose to ask this man who has been your crush for 2 years, and he finally shows up in your DMs. Of all the things that you could talk to him about, you want to start off the conversation with R. Kelly? So we know what your mindset was to begin with. We know what you had on your mind. R. Kelly. Okay, so the man asked her, he said, okay, this is my day off. But basically I understand exactly what he's saying. What he's saying is, okay, I have hit you up in the DMs. You've been following me. You know, you've been doing everything that you can to get my attention, because if you listen to earlier parts of the podcast, she will talk about how she has done all that she can do to get her crushes to notice her without actually making a move. So you have done whatever you needed to do to get this man to notice you or whatever. Okay, well, you finally got what you wanted. He's in your DMs, and the only thing that you can come up with is something about R. Kelly. So he lets you know, wait a minute, hold up. This is my day off. You know what I'm saying? What do you want me to do? What would you rather me do? Watch R. Kelly? Watch Surviving R. Kelly? Or get your number and hit you up? Okay, now right then, at that moment, she had a decision to make. You know, no, we just started talking. You know, this is just our first conversation. You know, let's talk here for a minute. You know, let's get to know each other here for a minute, and then maybe we'll exchange telephone numbers later on. But she jumped on this. And I'm not talking about some impressionable teenage girl or some impressionable girl in her early 20s or her mid 20s. We're talking about a woman that will soon be 37, 38 years old. Amanda Seales is over 35. So you immediately, based on your own words, you immediately give him your telephone number. He calls. And like I said, you talk about how intellectual it was and that there were laughs and all of that, and then you just tell him some story, you know, from your life, a life story. You know what I'm saying? You don't tell us what story you told him. I would be very interested to know what story you told him. So then you ask him to tell you a story. So he tells you a story about boarding school, his high school days. So this is a young man away from home, high school. So we're talking about what, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. A young man away from home in a boarding school. And he tells you this story about how him and his roommate made money. And you automatically find something wrong in that. You automatically find something wrong in this story. So then when you ask him, well, why did you tell me that? You know, his response is, okay, well, those are my high school days. Maybe that was just something that stuck out to him. Maybe that was just one of the more risque things he did when he was that young, and it just stuck out with him. But now remember, you the one with sexual harassment and R. Kelly on your mind. So if you approached him with R. Kelly, there's no telling what he might be thinking about you at this moment. So she claims that, if you listen to the clip, she claims that was the end of the crush. That was just, this red flag and all of that. And that was the, and things had started looking bad and all this. And she claims that he's the one that took it from just being a crush into prospect mode by hollering at her. He didn't holler at you. All he did was DM you, what's up? All he did was ask you for your number so he could get to know you better. He didn't holler at you. He didn't ask you to go out with him. He didn't ask you to have sex with you. So he didn't take it from crush to prospect. In your mind, you took it from crush to prospect. That's not something that he could do for you. The crush is all about you. You decide whether or not you're going to move it from crush phase, which is, this is just a crush. This is just somebody I think is cute, or this is just somebody, that I would like to get to know, or this is just somebody, that I think they got a lot going on. That's crush. Prospect is, can we take this and build something from it? Can we take this and build a relationship? Okay, but only you can take it from crush to prospect in your mind. So just because he asked you for your telephone number and called you, that took it to prospect for you? Okay, so then she says that she did, a little bit of research. And that's when it came out that supposedly he met this woman at the door of his hotel room butt naked. Okay, I take issue with that. First of all, he meeting all these women on Instagram. He meeting all these women on the internet. Okay, we have no way of knowing how long it took between his initial meeting with this other woman, her agreeing for him to come out to wherever she lives to meet her, and instead of her meeting him out in a public place like a restaurant or a nightclub or a bar or whatever, instead of her meeting him out in a public place, she's willing to go to this man's hotel room? Come on, women. This is 2019. Y'all are not stupid. A man that you don't know from Adam, a man that you met over the internet. First of all, you don't meet him in a private place. You don't invite him to your home. You don't go to his home. And you definitely don't go to the man's hotel room. That's automatically sending the wrong signal. That's automatically putting the wrong thoughts in anybody's head, male or female. First time you meeting somebody that you know absolutely nothing about. I don't care what you think you've read about them or whatever. I don't care how profile this person might be or whatever the case may be. You don't know this person. If he was out, if he came to your hometown on business, okay, well then you knew he was going to be in a hotel. Why didn't you meet him downstairs in the hotel lobby? Why didn't you meet him downstairs in the hotel restaurant? Why didn't you meet him at a restaurant somewhere? Remember, this is your hometown. You know where all the restaurants are. You know where all the good meeting places are. Why would you agree to meet a man that you know absolutely nothing about in his hotel room? And then get upset by the way that he answers his hotel door. And then want to talk about there was sexually predatory behavior. Okay, no, it wasn't. He didn't touch you. He didn't proposition you. He didn't put his hands on you. If it's true, that's the thing. If it's true. See, that's the problem with this. See, that's the problem with this Me Too movement and some of these other movements that are on the rise right now. That's the problem with them. We're just supposed to take this mess at face value. We're just supposed to believe these so-called alleged victims. And we're not supposed to question their actions. We're not supposed to question their stories. I take issue. I have been taking issue with women meeting men and men meeting women, because it happens to men occasionally too. But especially women. I take issue with you meeting men over the internet, Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, and all of these different places. And then you willing to go somewhere and meet this man that you know absolutely nothing about. And when you meet him at the wrong place in the wrong time, then you want to get upset when something that you deem inappropriate happens. Now see, all of that could have been avoided if it really happened that way. All of that could have been avoided by you simply looking out for yourself and protecting yourself and saying, well, let's meet in a public place. If we're going to do this meeting thing, let's meet in a public place. You going to his hotel room, it's the same. Well, it might have even been safe if you'd invited him to come to your home if you had other people there. But you being willing to meet him alone in his hotel room, come on now. Come on. And folks are just supposed to buy that without questioning it. without questioning your behavior, without looking at your behavior, without looking at how, if you did feel uncomfortable, how you put yourself in that position. You were a grown woman, not a child. It's not like he lured you there. That was a decision that you made. You made the decision to go meet this man that you knew absolutely nothing about alone in his hotel room. But then, like we read in the article, when she put this, when she put that much of the information out, supposedly other women started coming forth, and they are the ones that actually called his name out. And we're talking about how problematic he was, and how his behavior was very, very sexually predatory and all of that. And she felt like it was necessary to put his name out there. Not based on this. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. Because if the other women's stories allegedly are anything like this woman's story, okay, well, y'all set yourselves up. You put yourselves in a situation that you didn't have any business being in. And it's not because you were just young and dumb and didn't know. These were full-grown women. She said women. She didn't say girls. She said women. And like I said, she should know. Because she's in her late 30s. No. Here's the problem. And she tells it herself if you just listen. Let's go back and listen to a certain spot in the clip. Here's the problem.
Stop the predatory. And he was like, I was never following you. Wrong answer as well. And it speaks to the, again, reality that there are men who are out here really thinking like, I can do whatever the fuck I want to do, and I'm not going to have any repercussions. You think that motherfucker knew that I was going to find that out? And of course, I ended things by saying, it's a small world. He actually did not respond to me. And then I said, so did you just you're not following me? And he was like, I was never following you. Wrong answer as well. So like you landed in my DMs, but you weren't following me. He's like, you're not hard to find on Instagram. You're a prick.
That's the problem. That's the problem right there. Now you heard in her own words how she said she ended things by saying it was a small world. Okay, well, if the crush was over, you realize, okay, this guy's just a jerk. This guy's just a prick, as she called him. This is not for me or whatever. Then what difference does it make to you whether he's following you or not? What difference does it make to you whether or not he responds to you ever again? Because at this point, to listen to you, the alarm bells have gone off, and he said the wrong thing, and you've done some investigating and some research, and now this woman has come up talking about he came to the door buck naked and all of this. So to listen to you, it's done. He's no longer even crush material. So if that's the case, why are you concerned about whether or not he's following you? Why are you concerned about whether or not he even responds to you at that point if you say you ended it with, oh, it's a small world? Okay, well, if you ended it, then why didn't you just block him or whatever? Why did you go into all of this discussion with him about whether or not he was following you? And he tells you, no, he was never following you. And then you're like, well, okay, well, then how did you end up in my DMs? You're not hard to find on Instagram. And it was only after he said that she actually blocked him. Just listen.
Sequestered in your mind. Let it marinate. And sometimes you see the flags and you're like, that's fine, because I don't need to know about that, because I'm not trying to be with that person. But when you move into prospect phase, you have to let the fantasy element of the crush go. And I think that's the problem that a lot of us fall into. We move into prospect, and I was like, well, I have a show out there. He's like, no, I need to see you before then. Now, if I was still in crush mode, I would have been flattered by that. right? Because you're like, oh my God, my crush wants to see me. And I think a lot of us would be like that. And we fall into the bullshit because we're like, oh my God, attention, acceptance, assurance. But then you can't let that happen, y'all. Don't let it happen. Once the prospect element moves into space, you got to take a whole nother stance. You're no longer in the clouds. Your feet got to be grounded and rooted in protection of you. And my response to him was, I don't get on plays for niggas I don't know. So, enjoy your crushes. I know right now, like, I'm trying to think, do I have a crush?
Okay. And even after he tells her that he's not following her, never was following her, and tells her that she wasn't hard to find on Instagram, she continues conversing with him. She continues to converse with him and have conversation with him. And somehow or another, it gets into the arena of them meeting up. And she tells him something about, she has a show out there. So by her telling him that, she's letting us know that she was still open to meeting him somewhere. And he tells her, but no, I want to see you now. And her response was that she don't get on planes for niggas that she don't know. So that's not what it sounded like to me. It sounded like to me you'd have been open to meeting him if he'd have been willing to wait for a time when you were closer to him or when you were headed in that direction anyway. So what is this really all about? What is this really all about? Because based on what she said, he said, I see absolutely no hint of sexual harassment. I see absolutely no hint of sexually predatory behavior. I see none of that. Absolutely nothing. Based on a story that a man told you about something that him and his roommate did when they were in high school. Man didn't come out at you wrong. Man didn't disrespect you in any kind of way. The man came out at you in a very intellectual, very positive way. What did she say he said? Let's go back to what she said. He said when he very first came in her DMs.
Sometimes you can be all the Rhodes Scholars and you can have all the... He pushes...
See, all the Rhodes Scholars?
She goes to meet him. Like, what are we talking about right now? Into their room. Be intellectual. But then there's some... This is a prick. You are obsessive and fanatical. That's a crush that can become very problematic and turn into stalking and can also put you in danger. But I'll get back to that. I asked the guy, did you watch the R. Kelly documentary? He said no. Whippy back and forth. He's still cute. Still talking about shit I think is interesting. Still doing things I think is interesting. But I'm not gonna make a move. It's just over there. It's a crush. It's in its world. And then the day after New Year's, who lands in my DMs? Mr. Crush. Hey, I really appreciate your take on things. Very refreshing.
Now that's how she says he entered her DMs. Hey, I really appreciate your take on things. Very refreshing. Nothing disrespectful, nothing sexual, no sexual innuendo, no nothing. Clean, straight to the point, very respectful, very intelligent. So we get sexual predator and the possibility of sexual harassment out of a story that a 34-year-old man tells about some hijinks and some stuff that him and his roommate did back in high school, in boarding school, to make money. And the only reason why she could even attempt to try to pull anything sexual out of it was because they were evidently renting rooms to other students to spend time with girls. He didn't even say, even in her words, he never said that they were renting out these rooms so they could have sex. He said that there was this fire escape. They realized because of the fire escape that they could sneak girls up. And if they could sneak girls up, then their friends could sneak girls up. So they decided, okay, let's make some money off of this. He never mentions anything that went on in the rooms. He never mentioned anything sexual. All he said was that they would rape the girls. And how much they would charge was based on how they rated the girls. But you got to remember, she's the one that brought sex into the conversation. With the whole, have you seen surviving R. Kelly? Because that's all the whole R. Kelly scandal is about. Him having sex with underage girls. Now all of that throwing in, you know, he was kidnapping these women and holding these women hostage. And he's supposed to be even holding, you know, full grown adult women hostage and all that was thrown in for sensationalism. And so they could try to get something to stick against him. But the foundation of the case is sex. Let's be real. The foundation of the case is sex. And Amanda here lets us know that was what was most prevalent on her mind. You have had a crush on a man for 2 years. Doing whatever you need to do on Instagram, thinking this man is following you, thinking this man is watching you, doing whatever you can do to get his attention so you can get him to respond, so you can get him to make a move. He finally makes that move after 2 years. And the only thing that you can come up with is, have you seen Surviving R. Kelly? So that lets us know where her mind was. We still don't know where his mind was. She asked him for a story. He gave her a story. If she wanted a specific kind of story, then she should have specifically asked for a specific type of story. But she told him to just tell her a story from his life, and that's what he did. Now, how that became, you know, anything close to sexual harassment, anything close to sexually predatory behavior, how that became problematical, because if you felt uncomfortable, if you felt like, you know, it was leading in the wrong direction or whatever, you had two choices. You could have specifically told him, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute, let's clear the air, let's get some things straight. Or you could have no longer had any more conversation with him. Point blank period. No more conversation. But you let us know in this podcast that even after this raised red flags and you had to go investigate and you done heard about him coming to the door buck naked with another woman and all of that, you still continued to have conversation with him. You wanted to find out if he was following you. When he told you that he wanted to see you, that he wanted to meet up with you, you made it clear that you were headed, you know, in his direction, you know, in the very near future, because you had a show. So what is this really about? Now all of a sudden you want to come out and you want to drag this man's name through the mud, and you want to attach his name to sexual harassment and sexually predatory behavior based on what? Because you have certainly not shown where he exhibited any of that behavior towards you. And you say in your article that with literally no investigation, which means no proof, no fact checking or nothing, you automatically take the word of these women and put this man out here on blast. Which is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So this man's whole career could have could have crashed and burned behind something that somebody hasn't even investigated. Something that nobody I mean, you don't even know these women. You don't know these women from Adam. You don't know whether they're telling you the truth or not. But because they fit your narrative, because they fit into the fact that were you a scorned woman? Were you upset because you found out he wasn't following you? You know, were you upset because you found out he had never been following you? I mean, what really happened here? But now all of a sudden you out looking for other women. So you could turn this into something that it was not. And then you irresponsibly, because that was very irresponsible, without any proof, without any corroborating proof, without knowing anything about anything, you admitting yourself that there was no investigation. So if there was no investigation, then that means there was no fact checking, and that means that there was no proof. You irresponsibly throw this man's name out there after you had that little bit of contact with him, where he never came at you sexually. Men, be careful, especially black men. Be careful. Be careful. Because all it takes is an accusation. All it takes is an allegation. That's all it takes. In the society that we live in now, that's all it takes. Doesn't take proof, doesn't take facts. Well, for black men, it never has. For black men, it never has taken proof and facts and evidence and all of that. For black men, all it ever has taken was somebody's word, as long as that somebody was white. But now in the age of Me Too, and that other one, I think is on the rise or up and rising or whatever, in the age of this, now all it takes is for any woman to say he sexually harassed me. He was sexually inappropriate towards me. There was sexual misconduct. That's all it takes. And once those allegations are out there, as we have seen with Michael Jackson and R. Kelly, once those allegations are out there, you can even go through the whole court system. You can go through the whole court process and be found not guilty. And it doesn't change anything once those allegations are out there about you. Because I think what everybody keeps forgetting is that R. Kelly has already been through this process one time before too. Already been tried. Charged, tried, and found not guilty by a jury of his peers because the evidence was lacking. But have the allegations gone away? No, they never did with R. Kelly. Just like they never did with Michael Jackson, even though there wasn't even enough of evidence against Michael Jackson. They had 14 counts against him, 10 felony charges and 4 misdemeanor charges. They couldn't even get him on 1 misdemeanor charge. On top of the FBI investigating him for over 10 years. But those allegations are still there. They are still there. They are still haunting him, and he dead. So black men, wake up. Stay aware. And now you don't just have to be aware of Becky, of white women. Now you have to be aware of all women. There's no more of, you see a woman, you think she nice looking, you know what I'm saying, and you want to crack on and see how far you can get with her and all of that, and all you're doing is being a man and pursuing a woman that that you like and that you're interested in. But now she can take that interest and turn your words around, and the next thing you know, you accused of sexual harassment, you accused of sexual assault, Now, like I said, it's always been like that for black men, but not coming from black women. Now it's coming from black women as well. So brothers, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. You better keep every text message. You better keep record of every telephone call. You better keep record of all of it. Because when a woman can take the conversation that we just heard she had with a man, and all this man did was tell her a story from when he was a teenager, and no sex was involved. when that can become sexual harassment and very sexually predatory behavior, and you outing a man on social media? No. 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 Brothers, beware. Brothers, beware. I'm telling you now, beware. Like I said, used to be a time when the only woman that you really had to beware of was Becky, the white woman. But now you got to be just as aware of a sister, of a black woman. Because that agenda is being pushed. That just believe the victim. And the victim is always right. Don't question the victim. And it goes from a basic conversation to the next thing you know, you defending your life and trying to keep from losing everything you got because you got all of these allegations leveled against you. And every woman that has ever had a problem with you, every woman that has ever been upset with you, every woman that you may have dissed, or every woman that was more interested in you than you were in her, every woman that you may have ever jilted or whatever, here she comes out the woodworks with a story. So be careful, black man. Be very, very, very careful. Know who you're dealing with. And cover your tracks. Because see, this is what I still can't understand. If he was doing all of that, and he was so problematic, and his behavior was so sexually predatory or whatever, and all of that, then why were the police not involved? Why you gonna take the story to Amanda Seals instead of taking it to somebody who could do something about it? Why have we never heard anything about him before? You know, he's not this NFL player anymore. He's just an ordinary human being living an ordinary life. Yeah, he may be a neurosurgeon, but he's not a celebrity anymore. He's not in the spotlight anymore. So if you had a story to tell about this man, why you didn't tell your story to the police? Why you didn't tell your story to somebody who could have, you know, really done something for you and got justice for you? Why you going to Amanda Seals and tell your story? Why? So she could do exactly what she did? Out him on social media? Because like I said, you got to remember this. Don't forget, R. Kelly was very, very much in the front of her mind. That's the first thing she wants to discuss with this crush that she claims she's had for 2 years, and he finally shows up in her DMs. The first thing she wants to discuss with him is the R. Kelly situation. Come on now. And then not long after that, all of a sudden, he's a sexual predator. That's predatory behavior. See, again, like I said, this is what I have against the Me Too movement. Now I'm just supposed to take your word for this. This woman who said he came to the door buck naked, I'm just supposed to take her word for it. I'm not supposed to question her story. I'm not supposed to expect any facts. I'm not supposed to question her behavior. Now, It don't go down like that. Don't go down like that. Don't go down like that. So my final word on this is, in all fairness to Amanda Seals, she came back later on and she explained the situation, and she explained that she wasn't necessarily trying to accuse him of sexual harassment and all that, which she exactly did. Because right here in her podcast, you hear her talking about the behavior being predatory. So whether she called his name or not, it was already in her head. And when she claims that all of a sudden she saw these red flags and she went to investigate and do some research, what she was doing is she was trying to dig up some dirt on the man. That's what she was doing. And she happened to find some. So, brothers, just be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. If you're not about no mess, and if you're not about no bull, then I suggest you keep records of everything. Keep records of everything. Every conversation, like I said, every conversation, every email, every photo that's sent, every text message. Keep the records. Because now you never know who it's going to come from, where it's going to come from, when it's going to come. Just be on your P's and Q's. So that's it for that story. Now I want to touch on another story that I saw, and I don't think anybody has reported on this, and if they have, then you know, my bad, but I don't think anybody has reported on this. And I want to get to this because this is very, very interesting. Hold on just a minute. Hold on just a minute. Okay, now I found this very interesting. This story was first reported on in CNN Business. The article is by Ray Sanchez and Rebecca Reyes. And it was updated on Saturday, March 6, 2019. And the headline reads, week after taking over Alabama newspaper that called for Klan to ride again, black editor steps down. That's what I said, an article that called for the Klan to ride again. Okay. Her name is Alicia R. Dexter. And she has stepped down as publisher and editor of this magazine in Alabama. An African-American woman who was named publisher and editor of the Alabama newspaper that recently urged the Ku Klux Klan to night ride again has stepped down, citing what she said was continuous and damaging interference by the paper's owner. Alicia R. Dexter, who took over the troubled Democrat reporter of Linden last month, told CNN Saturday that she left the weekly newspaper Monday because she could no longer work with owner and former editor and publisher Goodlow Sutton. He penned a staggering editorial with the headline, "The Klan Needs to Ride Again," in the February 14th edition. Dexter said she resigned so that her integrity and well-being can be maintained. Attempts to reach Sutton for comment were unsuccessful. Sutton's editorial sparked outrage around the country. Time for the Ku Klux Klan to night ride again. Well, if it sparked outrage, I ain't heard nothing about it. I ain't heard nothing about it. I ain't seen nothing about it on. And so if it sparked outrage, I as far as I know, I haven't even seen. I got to do some research, a little bit further research to make sure. But so far, I haven't even seen any YouTube videos on this. So I don't know how much outrage it sparked, because it certainly hasn't been plastered everywhere, because everybody been too busy talking about R. Kelly and Michael Jackson. So how much outrage did it? Well, it might have sparked outrage around the country, but that don't necessarily mean that it sparked any kind of outrage with mainstream media. Time for the Ku Klux Klan to night ride again, Sutton wrote. Democrats in the Republican Party and Democrats are plotting to raise taxes in Alabama. Sutton then fueled the controversy further, telling the Montgomery Advertiser that he urged the white supremacist group to clean out D.C. via lynchings. We'll get the hip ropes out, loop them over a tall limb, and hang all of them, Sutton told the newspaper. He stressed that he wasn't calling for the hangings of all Americans, just the socialist communists. Seemed like the Klan would be welcome to raid the gated communities up there, Sutton wrote in his editorial. Beginning in the late 19th century, Klan members used night rides to terrorize blacks and their white allies with violence, including lynchings and firebombings. When asked by the advertiser if he recognized the Klan as a white supremacist group, Sutton compared it to the NAACP and said the Klan wasn't violent until they needed to be. So the folks in Alabama started calling, for him to step down, and it was just this big a controversy, and it's because of his recent and continued history of racist remarks and all of that. So Auburn University's Journalism Advisory Council stripped Sutton of its 2009 Distinguished Community Journalism Award. And they finally got him to step down, and they got this young black woman, Alicia R. Dexter, to take his place. She already worked at the newspaper, but she didn't have any previous experience. So they pulled her up, but after only a month, she just couldn't take it. She couldn't take it because he has changed several of her. Sutton, she said, sent out an altered version of the February 28th issue to various media outlets that included a prominent story defending his Klan editorial and attacking the Montgomery Advertiser reporter who interviewed him. Dexter, in a separate news release, also accused Sutton of interfering with Thursday's edition of the paper, saying it did not reflect her views or thoughts. She said she was stepping down and that the paper was being sold. The decision to accept the role of publisher editor of the Democrat reporter was an honor, and I have no regrets, she wrote. I am not discouraged. Healing will come to the wonderful and loving people here. Now they're saying that the Klan piece was not the first controversial piece. They said in October 2017, the paper published an editorial about NFL players kneeling during the national anthem to protest police brutality and racial injustice. Some of the news programs are making a big to-do about black football players kneeling in the stadium, the editorial said. That's what black folks were taught to do 200 years ago, kneel before a white man. A July 2016 editorial mocked President Barack Obama, calling him the Kenyan King, and complained about the way uncivilized tribes in Africa still run things. In April, the paper ran a political cartoon that ridiculed Palestinians. So, this paper under this Sutton man, who is actually the owner, this paper under him, when he was the publisher and the editor, I mean, it's obvious that it was racist. It's obvious that it was racist because there are many racial pieces that went out. But if they could deny it up until that point, once he called for the Ku Klux Klan to night ride again, there was just no doubt. There was just no doubt. There was absolutely no doubt. I'm gonna pull up the actual article from CNN on the actual Ku Klux Klan article. The editor of an Alabama newspaper is calling for the return of the Ku Klux Klan's infamous night rides. And I'll leave the link, but this was done by Doug Chris. Come on. It takes so long for these things to load up like they're supposed to. Doug Chris and Tina Burnside. And it was updated Wednesday, February the 20th. Klan needs to ride again. That was the headline of the article. Time for the Ku Klux Klan to night ride again. Democrats in the Republican Party and Democrats are plotting to raise taxes in Alabama. They do not understand how to eliminate expenses when money is needed in other areas. This socialist communist ideology sounds good to the ignorant, the uneducated, and the simple-minded people. People who do not understand the Constitution, do not like to be responsible. And then it cuts off and it goes on to say this is the same. So what when Democrats got us into World War I and World War II, then got us fighting in Korea. Next, when the industrial Northeast wanted more money, they got us in the Vietnam War, and now into the Middle East War. So that's just a picture. It's a picture of the actual editorial. An editorial written in support of the Ku Klux Klan, something you might expect to see in 1919. Believe it or not, you can see it in 2019 too. The editor and publisher of a small town newspaper in Alabama wrote one just last week. The editorial with the shock headline, "The Klan Needs to Ride Again," appeared in the February 14th edition of the Democrat Reporter in Linden, Alabama. "Time for the Ku Klux Klan to night ride again," begins the editorial. Sutton confirmed to CNN that he wrote the editorial but declined to provide any additional information. He told the Montgomery Advertiser, we already went over this, he urged the white supremacist group to clean out D.C. via hangings or lynchings. He called them lynchings. He stressed that he wasn't calling for the hangings of all Americans, just the socialist communists. And I'll leave the link to this article as well. So this is what I want to say. For all of you white folk out there and some of you black folk out there that are living in denial, or you just don't want to admit, or in some cases you just don't care as long as it's not directly affecting you and your family, that are going around talking about racism is dead and white supremacy doesn't exist, and you know, why you trying to take us back to this and take us back to this time, and you know, why do you keep on talking about slavery and all of this? This is the reason why. This is a white man in the deep South, where the Klan was born, in Alabama in 2019, calling for the Ku Klux Klan to ride again, to night ride again. Because see, that's when they did their most work. That's when they did their best work, was at night, when they would terrorize black people and terrorize the few white people that they would take a chance to terrorize, that sympathize with the black struggle. You know, and they put on all of their stuff, and that's when the Klan would do their prettiest work. You know, they throw on they sheets and they hoods and cut out their eyes, and they would get on their horses and they would ride, and they would set folks' stuff on fire. They would beat and hang black men, drag them out of their homes. That's what happened to Malcolm X's father. Back in the 20s, he was, back in I think it was like 2014, 15, 20s, somewhere along in there, he was a civil rights activist. He was an activist before the activist. And there were a couple of raids on him to get him to shut up, and when he wouldn't shut up, one night they just finally dragged him on out and finally, just laid him down on the railroad track and tied him down to the railroad track, and the train ran over him, and the train killed him. And Malcolm's mother could not get any insurance money because they actually declared this man's death a suicide. How you gonna tie yourself to railroad tracks? Anyway, but they were known for firebombing, and they were known for burning folks out of their homes over in the night, and dragging black men out of their homes and beating them and killing them and lynching them, and that's what this man in 2019. This Sutton man, that's what he's calling for. He's calling for the rise of that. You know, now he may be saying that he's not calling for the hangings and the lynchings of all Americans. You know what I'm saying? That it's just the Democrats or just the socialist communists or whatever. But no. They've never been known for lynching white folks. So why would you call them out all of a sudden now to decide that they're going to go lynch some white folks? You calling them to rise up again because you don't like the way things are looking and you don't like the direction that things are going in, and it's time to put some people back in their place. So for all of y'all that want to walk around and talk about the racism is dead and white supremacy is dead, you know, and why you race baiting and why you trying to use the race card and all of this kind of mess. This white man right here just proved all of y'all wrong. He proved every last one of you wrong. But my thing is, why is the FBI not investigating this? Why is the Justice Department not investigating this? This man just made a direct threat against the government. Why is this man not being investigated as a terrorist? This man is calling for a terrorist group, the Ku Klux Klan, who have killed countless black people for no reason whatsoever, and taking pictures of themselves at the hangings and at the lynchings and at the burnings. So this man is calling for a terrorist group to rise up and go clean out Washington. Well, you know, this man is, I mean, he's laying it out there. The Democrat Republicans and the Democrats and the liberals and the social communists, you know what I'm saying? So this man has actually threatened, and we're not going to lynch them all. You know, and then he says we're going to get our hip ropes. Let me read that part. We'll get the hip ropes out, loop them over a tall limb, and hang all of them. Clean out DC. That's where the government is. So why is this man not being investigated as a terrorist? Why is this man not being charged for terrorist crimes? Why is this man not being charged with calling for the lynching of folk in the American government? If this was a black man that had made this statement, oh, they'd have been snatched him up and locked him up. And this man didn't just make the statement. He wrote it as an article in a newspaper. He put it all out there. And ain't denying that he said it or nothing else. He stressed that he wasn't calling for the hangings of all Americans, just the socialists and communists. So why is this man not being investigated? Why is Homeland Security not investigating? Why is Homeland Security involved? If I'm not mistaken, Homeland Security and the FBI are involved in the R. Kelly case. The FBI was heavily involved in the Michael Jackson case, but the FBI and Homeland Security ain't involved in this. Ain't nobody called for this man to be investigated as a terrorist. Come on now. Wait, the double standard is great. White privilege is showing up here. You're a white man, you can take your newspaper and you can call for a terrorist organization, a violent terrorist organization, to come forth and just start lynching people. Because you don't agree with their politics. So they just supposed to go to Washington, clean out Washington, and just hang them all. But Homeland Security has no problem with this. The federal government has no problem with this. The Justice Department has no problem with this. But they all up in cases about black men and so-called sexual allegations. But we ain't seeing nothing here. So for all of y'all out there, like I said, black folk and all of y'all dumbed down, sleeping, don't want to be aware of black folks that want to go around and talk about racism, like I said, doesn't exist anymore. White supremacy doesn't exist anymore. There's no such thing as white privilege and all that. This right here disproves all of that. It debunks every bit of it. So y'all can just shut up now. When you got a white man that feels so privileged that he can put this kind of threat in writing, put it in a newspaper and distribute it in America and not worry about being investigated. Not worried about anybody knocking on his door. Not worrying about the FBI. Not worrying about Homeland Security. Not worrying about any kind of repercussions whatsoever. This is the face of white privilege. This is what white privilege looks like. This is what racism and white supremacy looks like. Because if you think for 1 minute that he's calling, that he's just calling for the lynchers, like I said, I've never known the Ku Klux Klan to hang white folk. They might have terrorized them a little bit, but white men were not being dragged out of their homes and hung and burnt. That was reserved for black men. So what is this white man really calling for? What kind of uprising is he really calling for? What kind of cleanup job is he really calling for? But this is the face of white privilege. This is the face of white America, of white supremacy, knowing that they can do whatever they want to do. They can put out whatever they want to put out. And they ain't got to worry about being investigated. They ain't got to worry about no repercussions. They ain't got to worry about nobody chastising them. They ain't got to worry about none of that. Because like I said, had that been a black man, to be honest, had that been a black man or a Muslim, or anybody from the Middle East, or anybody from any of the Islamic states or whatever, oh, they'd have been locked up and held as terrorists. It's a threat against it's a threat against the United States government. Once DC was mentioned, and Democrat this and Republican this was mentioned, and he making it clear that he talking about what's going on in Washington, D.C. Oh, they would have been held as, yes, they are terrorists. We got to lock them up and throw away the key. It would have been all over mainstream media. They would still be talking about it. But this gets tucked away somewhere in a little corner. Ain't nobody saying nothing about it. We ain't heard nothing about no investigation. You know, he keeps meddling and keeps messing. So the black woman that took charge is like, I'm not even going to try to deal with this. Because she sees where it's headed. She sees where it's going. So she stepped down from it. Probably just as much for her protection and the protection of her family as anything else. And who is he in the Klan that he can just call up the Klan and tell them, okay, y'all, it's time for y'all to ride again. Okay, y'all, it's time for y'all to get back to business. All right, it's time for y'all to get back to doing what y'all do best. What kind of position does he hold in the Klan? Because remember, he says here, we will get the hemp ropes out, loop them over a tall limb, and hang all of them. So I think he's letting everybody know that he's a Klansman too. And not no little bitty one. Evidently, he's one with enough of power that, you know, he can say, okay, it's time. It's time. So far, I ain't seen nobody that was bold enough to actually get, in the newspaper on an article and just go ahead on and call them out, and not just call them out, but tell them specifically where to go and specifically what needs to be done. But because of white privilege, ain't nobody touching him. He ain't being declared a terrorist. He ain't being investigated by the FBI and Homeland Security. And for violating anybody's civil rights. And he done broke the law. Because he done communicated a threat against the whole government. But ain't nobody investigating him. Ain't nobody talking about this. If the black woman had stepped down, if the black woman hadn't stepped down as editor and publisher, I wonder if we'd have seen anything else about the story, period. Just like I said about the college scam. That's been going on ever since back in 2011. They probably been investigating that thing for at least the last 3, 4, 5 years. But by the time we hear anything about it, by the time it's put out there in mainstream media, they done already gathered enough evidence that they done charged people. White privilege. But I got to know, when are they going to investigate this man? When are they going to investigate him for terrorism? When is he going to be listed as a terrorist? When are they going to deal with the fact that this man has called forth a terrorist group to directly attack Washington, D.C. with lynchings? He's very specific about how he wants it done. Hang them all. Think about that. But all of this about racism don't exist anymore. All of this about white supremacy don't exist anymore. All of this about race baiting and using the race card and all of this. And all of this about there is no such thing as white privilege. Here it is right here. Here it is right here. So y'all can just hush and let it go. Let it go. If you ain't got nothing no better to say, if you ain't got nothing else to add to the conversation, then just don't say nothing. Because it's here, right here. As clear as day to anybody who really wants to see it. If you want to remain blind and sleep and dumb, then do that on your own time and keep your mouth shut. But it's here. This has been Kim Stevens with Undiluted TV. And I'll be back soon to bring you some more news. Good night.